Yeah, The cipher is the lesson. 10 years back, the grind was a blessing. 7 figures flashing, thought I had the code. Then the partners flipped the script, the whole thing just imploded. Had to eat that humble pie, take the L and learn the truth. Reframe the mindset, get back to the root. Now I lead the cipher, spilling knowledge on the mic. Use neuroscience and scripture to help you live your life. It's the hands up method, built on faith and mental wealth. Yeah, the hands up method for a better you. Let's get it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening to another episode of the podcast, Tell Me Your Story. I'm your host, Chris Baker, and today's guest to tell his story is Mike. Give it up for Mike. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How's it going today, Mike?
Oh, can't complain. Just got done actually being reminded how old I'm getting and out of shape. Kids want to go shoot hoops a little bit before they get ready for bed and stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, oh man, you go do that for 20 minutes.
Yeah, they're like, Dad, we're not tired. Come on out here and ball with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where are you from?
Born in Phoenix originally. Transplanted to Alaska when I was young, a couple years old. Had some opportunities. I went back and forth to Arizona a lot when I was younger. So spent a lot of time down in there. Grandparents had a place in Mexico. And so, spent some time down there. And then as I got older, there was a time period, ended up on the East Coast for a couple years and missed the West Coast, missed Alaska, all that stuff. So I ended up coming back.
So you're currently in Alaska right now?
Yep.
So everybody wants to know, just in case, is it cold or is it like super cold or is it not what we think?
It's not horrible right now. Let's see. It is, I don't know. It says, according to the weather app, it had a high of 50 today, but it was probably hotter than that. They kind of take a lot of the weather from weird places, and so when you end up like at your house, it ends up being different typically. So it was probably around 60 degrees today and sunny, I would guess.
That's how it was here out here in Ohio. The same temperature, we had 60 degrees. But like I was saying earlier, like the last 3 days, it was like in the like almost 90.
Yeah.
We've been kind of having like bipolar weather here.
Yeah, I get that. Alaska's horrible for that. It's nonstop. You never know what you're going to get. We always, we live near a big mountain range here, and that's kind of the thing. And the joke around here is just basically, you want to know what the weather is or how to dress, go look over the mountains, and you'll know for the next 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, that's why you always see like dudes around here will have jackets and shorts on because you just never know how to dress.
Yeah. It's
all right, Mike.
It's kind of one of those things. It always cracks me up because like with the kids, I typically plan and prepare for it. You know what I mean? So it's like I'll wear something light and decent, but bring a jacket, the whole deal. And then with the kids, it's like always the fight, of like, oh, it's hot out, and like it's not supposed to be rainy or anything. And they're like dressing like it's winter. You're like, dude, go put some shorts on, or vice versa. It'd be like the middle of winter, and they're like, but it's nice out. I'm like, dude, just because it's sunny, because up here in the wintertime, it actually flips opposite to where like when it's clear and sunny and it's winter, it's actually a lot colder. So it kind of ends up being this weird situation of like they see the sun and like it looks nice and I'm like, oh cool, I can wear a t-shirt, and I'm like, dude, it's -10, stop.
And like, nope, ain't gonna be able to work, ain't doing that today, guys, put your clothes on.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, out here in Ohio, if it's 50 degrees, we're going swimming.
Yeah.
We're catching some crawdaddies.
Yeah, we do that a lot, like going down to Arizona and stuff. It'd be like spring break, and like that's March usually up here. So we'd go down and it'd be like the pools are like 55 degrees and nothing's open, and we'd be like, oh, sweet, let's go swimming. And all my family would be like, what's wrong with you? Like, dude, it's swimming weather. What do you mean? It's like 70 degrees out and the, water's 55. We're good.
That's what you get. You get people from Florida. They're like, did somebody hurt you? Did somebody hurt you? Like, no, man, it's beautiful out. It ain't snowing. We're about to get in that. We're going in the creek. See y'all later.
For sure.
All right, like let's jump into your story, man. Where does it all start for you? Where did you grow up at? Where does it begin? Did you have technology or no technology as a kid?
No, I'm not young. I'm not young enough for that. I wish.
Mm.
No, we grew up in the. I was actually just talking to my dad the other day, and we were talking about the old, like when Nokias were the size of an actual brick, like not the Nokia brick phones that like people post on Instagram for the memes, because those are still like smaller than your hand. I'm talking like the actual like brick phones. That was one of the things, is I that was he had one of those. And I would say, I spent a lot of time. My dad owned his own business growing up, and I would run around with him a lot for that. And at some point, I think right around middle school, he had like the old analog Palm Pilot, so I could play like Snake on it. Um, and so, yeah, that was pretty much like the beginning of technology. So I'd say about high school, um, I did kind of get like my first phone ish, or like right at the beginning of high school. And that was like when they started getting a little bit nicer than the Nokias you still see on Instagram. Um, so kind of, edge of technology, I'd say. But
Okay, for the younger generation, were you so they could understand better? Were you able to text on this phone? Were you able to get on the internet with your phone? Explain this phone so the
no,
younger
there was no
generation can
internet. We
understand.
could text. You got charged by the text. So you normally you would your if you sent too many texts, your parents would ground you because you ended up sending, like now it's like, oh yeah, I sent 5,000 texts, in a month or whatever. These kids are probably sending 10 or 15 or some crazy number if you actually look it up. But yeah, you could text, but it was the old actual buttons on a phone. So like when you wanted, say, like you were trying to spell, like dog, right? You'd have to like click the D, and then you'd like the O, you'd have to click it, because they're like on the same thing. You got MNO, so you click that button 3 times, and then you had to click each button multiple times to do that. And so yeah, we could text. It wasn't very fast, and you couldn't send very many, but it was a thing.
How did you guys live back then? That's right. I can already hear somebody saying it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's different times. We actually joke a lot because I did grow up in Alaska, obviously. So like we talk, now like my daughter, she's my oldest child. She's 14, and she just got her permit. And she's like starting to ride her bike around the neighborhood and kind of go up to the store by herself. And she got a phone or whatever, and um, she's starting to learn to drive. I mean, up here you kind of learn to drive on the back dirt roads when you're younger, but actually on the roads and that sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, me and my wife talk all the time. It's like, when I was 14, me and my buddies, like we go out, like one of my close friends growing up, his parents had a cabin on this river up north, and we take a big boat. They had this big 21-foot jet boat that we take up to the cabin for like a weekend. And then they had a little 16-foot mini jet boat that was there. Right. And like, we're 14 years old. And like, we'd basically be like, hey, we're gonna go run the river for a little bit, go fish, right? And we'd take his dog and like go fish, right? And like we didn't have cell phones at that time, and we darn sure wouldn't have worked out there even if we did. We didn't have radios, right? Like it was kind of like this. If something happened, like we were pretty screwed, right? But we never thought of it. It was kind of, it was what we did. And like we were allowed to go do this. And, I was probably 10, 11 years old when we used to ride our bikes all across town and stuff, and like the parents, that old school stuff that you hear about or you see in the movies where it's like, you better be home by the time the lights come on the street, or, you better be home by 5:30 because that's when dinner will be done. And that was, how I grew up. And so it was a very, very different situation compared to now, I would say.
And to let everybody know, man, it was beautiful times. Beautiful times.
Yeah, yeah.
Back then, like that's what I was saying. Like, you would probably think you're like, oh, well, you guys weren't able to like film everything. You weren't able to take pictures. Like, no, man, we were living in the moment. We were enjoying life.
Yeah.
Like I said, you were out there not having a care in the world, and anything could have happened. But he's still here, guys. He's still here. He's still here.
Yeah. We didn't die. You know that whole bumper sticker. But did you die? Like that's how we lived. You know, like it was fine as long as you didn't die.
Got some scrapes, man. Got some scars, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they would say rub some dirt on it, put some mud on it.
Yeah.
So, okay. We covered grade school. We're going into high school. Did you have the laptop?
No, I didn't. I did have a room computer. That was only because my dad, running his own business from home. He had a few friends that were computer nerds back then. You didn't go up to Best Buy. You went up to like Radio Shack or some of these like little small custom computer shops, and you'd buy individual pieces for your tower. I mean, now you can order them online and you have all this liquid cooled, this, that, the other. There was none of that. So my dad had actually upgraded his business computer, and he had some at the time older gentleman, but he was big into computers, build him a custom computer, and I got the hand me down. It's kind of like, I think it was more or less my dad came from that generation where you didn't throw anything away. And that was the deal. Is like, it still worked, but he didn't have the space on his desk for it. So it was like, here, hold on to this. You can have it, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, technically I did, that we had a webcam back when it looked like a little thing that you actually set on your computer. It was like the size of a phone nowadays, basically. And it sat on your computer, and MSN Messenger, back in the MySpace days. And so yeah, that was pretty much my high school time. And I would say that was when a lot of transitions in life happened in general. And like things started actually like shifting, right? This is like the first time I'm really kind of starting to be conscious to the things that are going on. Prior to that, it was really like you said, a lot of like living in the moment, just enjoying everything, all that stuff. And I started being more aware of things. And I think it was because like last year of junior high, rolling into the first year of high school, my dad actually had he was the business he was in. He was a broker, and of food products. And so what happened is a lot of his big manufacturers that he was representing actually chose to go to like national reps. So like one big company that covered the whole country instead of individual like sectors or regions. And so he kind of had this transition period where he had to shut down that business and transition into something different. And so that was kind of the first time of like, I remember, we weren't rich by any means, right? Like up until a certain point, like we were pretty poor. Like mom drove a car that like the doors didn't work. I had to climb in through the back hatch. The driver's door worked, but outside of that, I had to climb in through the back hatch to get into my car seat, kind of thing. And my dad had some success for later on, and he started doing this. And at the time, they bought it was an early 90s Bronco. I think they bought like towards the end of the 90s, right? So it was 8-year-old car, 6-year-old car, whatever it was. But that was a major upgrade. And then dad ended up buying a new truck at the end of the 90s. And so that was some type of, he was seeing some type of success there. And for the late 90s, early 2000s, I would say it was he was making probably 120 grand, which in nowadays money is probably at least 250, 300, right? Like when you compare it. So like for the time period, it was good money. And mom was making probably 40, 50 grand a year as an office manager too. So I mean, you're pushing close to 200 in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like it was comfortable, right? But that was when that shifted. That was kind of like my first awareness, I'd say, to like something's different and actually seeing the story of like things unfolding, right? And there was a different dynamic where my dad shifted from being very, I would say, not to say he wasn't ever like not involved with the family, because he always was. And when he owned his business, he did travel a lot. And I do have some of that experience growing up of like dad being gone for days or a week or so, at work, out doing, but he also took me with a lot. Right. So it was kind of a double-edged sword. But this is the first time like saw this experience of um basically going to a day job, right? Or like the first recollections of dad going to a day job. And it was like this traditional, like what you hear of like dad goes to the 8 to 5, he comes home, kicks back in the recliner, right? And he was still pretty involved. And we still there was a river a few hours away from us that we grew up fishing. And like still, like on a lot of weekends over the summer, we'd be down doing that. But, like, the dynamic definitely shifted, right? To where, like, I started becoming a teen, I kinda wanted to do my own thing, parents kinda backed off a little bit, they kinda did whatever, and there was some stuff later too that I realized as an adult, which we can circle back to, with my mom, that I grew up and just never realized, right, until later, but, that's where I would say I started noticing the shift, right? Like, started getting into some stuff. Parents weren't paying as close of attention, right? So as kids do, like started getting into some stuff, getting into trouble. Well, luckily I was pretty good about staying out of trouble, but it's it was one of those things that I would say probably a lot of high school kids resonate with. And that was, I started doing all the stuff that high school kids do. We started partying, started, at that time smoking weed, doing all the stuff, right? And I kind of actually, funny enough, I had that entrepreneur mindset from a young age, right? So when I started smoking weed, it was kind of at some point I was like, what am I doing, man? All my friends do this. I could make money, right? So like I quit just for the purpose of like selling it to all my friends, right? So but yeah, it was I don't know, it was definitely a shift right around the beginning of high school. And then it started this trajectory that was like years coming of a different situation in my life, and I would say a different direction for a lot of years.
Like it just sound. I mean, when it like I think about it now, we're kind of this. It feels like we're just driving an American Pie. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
Yeah, probably a lot of people are too young for that movie, but
That's what I'm thinking too. I'm like, I can't even say that reference anymore. It's like, what would even be the closest thing to it nowadays?
right.
But yeah, I imagine it's still probably like that now. But more, who knows? Even it might be more extreme because I was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And at the time, we got into. I think my very first drink, if I could reflect, I think it was the Four Locos. Man, that's what we were starting off with. Woo!
Yeah.
Get a can of those.
Yeah, we didn't do those. We had a I was kind of a I don't know how you'd say it. Not a chameleon, because I didn't blend in. I stood out, but I got along with everybody, right? And so like my high school, I went to like one of the most diverse high schools in the country. And then the friend, that I was talking about, we used to go run the rivers together. His parents kind of lived or moved out to like a more like, I would say probably redneck would be the best description, like area, right? So like I was literally, hanging out, partying with all different backgrounds and everything all throughout the week. And then some of the weekends I'd go out to my buddy's house, right? And like growing up, his parents were always the parents that like, we know you're going to do this, so we'd rather you do it at our house where we can like watch you and make sure you're not driving and right. So it was kind of like we were allowed to go out and party at their house, right? And so yeah, it was definitely, we'd out there, we'd drink beer. In town it was all liquor normally. And we a lot of kids grew up playing beer pong. We played Jaeger bomb pong. Jaeger bomb in the cups, and like yeah.
I'm thinking to myself as you were saying that Jaeger bombs. We used to do. Was that what you mix it with the Monster? Did you guys do it that way?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, it was either a Monster or Red Bull, depending on where you're at. Yeah.
And you're playing beer pong that way? Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
I'm being a super bad influence right now, guys. Stay in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that
Don't do
stuff.
any of this. Yeah.
Good times, good times. But stay in school, guys. Stay in
Right.
school.
Yeah. 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 It was interesting. For sure. It definitely, it was good and bad. I mean, there's a lot of life experience, a lot of things you learn, but I definitely um, kind of started realizing that when you make friends with people, like it opens doors, right? Like that was kind of my first realization of like your network is your net worth kind of thing, but like without actually
Mhm.
realizing that. And I actually started really honing in on like my mindset at that time and what I was thinking and what I was doing. Not in the ways that I probably should have, right? I have a ex-wife and kids from that marriage, and I met her freshman year of high school, and I did the typical, she came up from not a good childhood. A lot of, I wouldn't say, eh, in some ways, not what like a lot of people would consider a bad childhood, but in other ways, like abandonment. Dad was never there, mom didn't want to be a mom, all that sort of stuff. And so she like really latched on to me. Being in high school, I was a high school boy, right, doing high school boy things. And so I think that created a lot of, I guess, damage there too, right? And so it kind of became this thing of, as we navigated high school, that was, I started looking at like, okay, if I think this or I do this or I actually get to know people and treat them, a certain way or whatever, like it actually is beneficial, right? So you kind of got this like how you treat people is what you're going to get back out of it, right? Um, and so it turned into, I think there was a combination of like actually looking at my mindset though in a work aspect and also the things that went on with my dad that from the time I was 14 I actually worked two jobs, most of the time, like over the summer, in the winter time I would, obviously being a high school student, I would kind of not really work or just do oddball stuff, at a certain point, like it talked about selling weed to my friends, right, to make money. But it opened up a lot of doors because there was a lot of hard work. I was asked to be like managing a food truck when I was like 14, 15. I was asked to do construction when I was like 16. It was kind of like, hey, it's got to be under the table because you're not 18. You have to be 18 to do construction, but you actually work your butt off. And um, all these opportunities. And then even like, as I get towards the end of high school, I only had to take like one class my senior year. I ended up working for a grocery store, like a lot of kids do. But I actually ended up in a department that you had to be 18 to work at. I was 17, but I worked my butt off. So they actually made me a manager after like 6 months. And the problem with that was I wasn't even 18 yet, but nobody knew. Like they just kept, like nobody checked the paperwork. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I rolled into like being an 18-year-old kid. I guess in a lot of ways thinking I was on top of the world, right? Like hadn't got busted for a lot of the dumb stuff I did, hadn't really, yeah, like kind of got away with it, if you will. Making over 60 grand a year working at a grocery store, right? And then I got my like little side hustle. Like at that time, it wasn't anything bad, it's buying and selling, swapping dirt bike, ATVs, parts, car parts, truck parts, that kind of stuff. And back then it was Craigslist, right? It wasn't even Facebook Marketplace now. But yeah, I kind of started laying that groundwork for, like I said, I would say my high school years just had this massive like shift of everything to where I like dug into work, right? And like that was kind of my life. Was work and then doing dumb high school boy stuff and talking to all the girls you can and that sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean it kind of, like I said, it was an interesting ride. I learned a lot from it. And it it did, looking back on it now, I'm like, man, if I had somebody that like really like a coach maybe, like a sports coach, because by then, I grew up playing hockey. I was pretty good at it, and as I approached high school, I kind of gave it up and just wanted to, go hang out with my friends, kind of deal. But I think if I had that, because my dad was very involved. My parents are still married to this day, which is a whole nother thing in itself. But um, it I think that it would have changed the trajectory, if you will, and not saying it's on anybody else, because it's 100% on me, right? Like, I made the choices to do what I did. I made the choices to do the things, to um, be the person that I was being, right? But I can say that looking back now and looking at like my own kids and how they've grown up and stuff, like having somebody consistent in their life that is constantly working on like their identity and who they are makes a massive difference in like the outcome, right?
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. You were like most people when you reflect on that, like when you went through bad things or you did certain things, you wish you had like a mentor because it would have helped you out better along the line. They possibly would have helped. But I've grown to, to start thinking differently. Is I'm kind of glad I did the things that I did. That way I can teach my kids, like you're probably running into now, like if they run into the same problems like you once did, like it's okay. I was there once, and I can kind of help you out here. I can be your mentor and teach you not to do these things. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, definitely, I would say, that's kind of where it started for me. This girl that I'd met coming to the end of high school, like right after high school, she ended up pregnant, with my daughter now. And it kind of it shifted some stuff. There was some stuff that I was getting into, and actually some decisions that I was about to make, that to chase a very different lifestyle, on the wrong side of the law, if you will. And it made me second guess that, right? Her getting pregnant when she did. And I look back now, I am very faith-based now. And back then it was just kind of like a coincidence, right? But now I look back and I'm like, it was God interjecting into my life saying, hey, you gotta, we're gonna point you in a different direction, right? um so yeah, dealt with that. She was pregnant. I turned 19 by the time our daughter was born. She was still 18, and went through all the, I guess, young dumb stuff. Still living with the parents, not because I had to at that point, but it was more or less like I wanted to save up for a house. I didn't want to rent. At the time I had this mindset. I was kind of stuck in the old school, like you grow up, you save up, you buy a house, live the white picket fence lifestyle. And so I was lucky enough, my parents were um graceful enough, I guess, to actually let us stay there. They had plenty of room and a big house and stuff, mostly because it was a duplex that had been turned into not a duplex anymore. But we had some room, and we, were able to do that, and actually set our sights on, hey, like let's save up, buy a house, that sort of thing. And so I roll into, I think about the time I was 19 now. I got a 1 year old. At the time, the girl is with, that later became my wife, well, now ex-wife, but um she was working. She's actually a waitress at a strip club, right? And looking back on that, like it was kind of this, I had a bunch of friends that went there. I didn't like spending money there. I was that weird, right? Like half the time I'd get their phone numbers because I wouldn't spend money, and like it was so out of place. Like, why is there a guy coming to a strip club and not spending money, right? Um, so they'd like give me their phone numbers and be like, "Hey, we should hang out outside of this," and I'm like, eh. But it was kind of the thing, right? And like I still wasn't like fully committed to this woman at the time. It was, still on and off, playing games, doing the dumb young guy thing, which then transitioned into like we had, as she needed a job, ended up like she was a waitress there for a little bit, which now looking back on it, right now they're like, probably shouldn't have, right? Like shouldn't have allowed that. And then we started getting our crap together. I ended up leaving the store and actually getting, about the time I was 19, my first job in sales, in car sales, actually. And she ended up working for a bank as a teller. And I tell people all the time, if you are afraid of getting told no, you should go join car sales for a little bit. Go do it for about 2 or 3 years, and get used to it. Get used to rejection, because when you get over that, it changes a lot in your life. Um, so yeah, did that. Still, doing dumb stuff, playing games. Got into my early 20s. Ended up having another kid. Ended up over my early to mid 20s, a couple more kids, totaling four. Um, with her, married her. Let's see, I think we were early 20s. Would have been 2016, I think. Yeah. Anyways, um, 2015. Yeah, right around that time. Anyways, so we were married, ended up getting married. I did it at the time because, well, that's what you're supposed to do. You have kids with a woman, you're supposed to marry her, you're supposed to do all the stuff that society tells you, right? What I didn't realize, and this is where we'll start kind of circling back into the childhood, is that I didn't have a great example of what a relationship was supposed to be. My parents are still together to this day. I don't think that they should be, to be completely honest, knowing what I know now. And so just the way that I was taught what a relationship looks like, right, from the examples that I had, wasn't great. Um, and so I replayed that in my own life, right? And it led to this. I was still dumb doing things, right? Still talk to other girls. Um, there was basically, as we lead on, um, we get into, I think, the mid 20s is when now things are really starting to change for me, in the sense that, like, I am, I started making really good money for my age. I bought my first house when I was 21. Um, Working for the dealership, doing side hustles. I was making six figures at the dealership, still doing side hustles, flipping car parts, buying, at this point, marketplace is a thing. So doing the marketplace thing. She's working for the bank, she's making decent money. So now here we are, probably pushing 200 a year as a couple in the house, which, young, 1, 2 kids, is not horrible for being in your early 20s, right? Pretty good for the most part. And what I started seeing was this trend in my life where, um, was always seeking. I did At the time, I didn't realize what it was. Now, looking back on it, I was seeking validation, right? And I didn't know where it came from. And I had some, like, real skeletons in the closet, or demons that I was fighting, if you will, where that was my motive, right? Is like, I would still talk to other girls, like, nothing physical, but definitely, like, emotional affairs, right? Um, and it was this seeking validation type thing, right? Which wasn't great. Looking back on it, it was kind of like we did, me and my ex-wife, we were doing these things to each other. We were both seeking validation in our own ways, right? And it became this, like, trend, right? And for a lot of years, like, we didn't ever treat each other the way we should have. We were definitely not in a covenant marriage by any means. Um, I would constantly seek validation through either conversations with other women, or, excelling in my job, in my work, in my career. She was, seeking validation in people she was talking to at work, that sort of thing. Um, and it came to this place that, like, I would say we lived in this like normal space, if you will, right? Where like this is what it's like, right? Like everybody's dream is, to go get a decent paying job, have, a small little cozy house with your spouse and your couple kids, and like this is what life's about. And like, yeah, you guys aren't always gonna agree and this and that. And like, your relationship looks like this, well that's normal, right? Because that's just what happens when you get married, right? Like all the stuff you hear from society. And um I remember like thinking like something's off, but like couldn't pinpoint it, and I went through these cycles, right, of like ups and downs, right? I would push and push and push and have a really successful year, couple years, and then come down, right? And about this time I hit my mid 20s, was the first time I started a business that I pushed, right? And I really pushed this business, and the results reflected it, right? I founded this business, I created this business. It's like the first year, I'm working a full time job. I'm actually working two jobs because my at the time wife chose, we had actually decided that she would be a stay at home mom, and I had left the dealership to have more time. Well, the theory was more time with the family, but that didn't end up being the case because then I'm working two jobs and trying to start a business at the same time. Um, and what ended up happening is it not only did I get burned out, right? Because my days were like full-time job, come home, eat dinner, hang out with the family for like an hour, take a nap, go to my night job, you know, get up, go straight from the night job to my day job, and I'm doing the business in between somehow and on lunch breaks and what other people would take as smoke breaks and on weekends and so this first year was kind of just working for myself, doing my own thing. Is I think on taxes we made like 47,000 dollars with the business, right? And I'm like, oh, that's not bad. Quit the second job, focus on my day job, just did the business, right? Now, at this point, I'm like, man, I could make that much more if I added somebody, right? I had a buddy at the time that was helping me build a website, and he kind of approached me with it was kind of the same simultaneous time frame of like, hey, I don't really want to get paid. I just want equity because I see what you're building. Right. And at the time, I'm like, man, that sounds great. Right. Like, I don't gotta, we just give you equity and then like whatever we make, like I just share some of that with you, like all these things. Right. And I understood business from the point of like what my dad had taught me. Right. I grew up, we had businesses growing up in the food service. When my dad kind of shut down his business and moved on in high school, he went to go work for the Small Business Assistance Center for the state up here. Like, we were tied to business, but no one in my family had ever built a seven-figure business, right? Which is, I can tell you, very different, right? A sole prop and kind of working for yourself, making 40, 50 grand a year, or, even 100 grand a year is very different than a seven-figure biz or bigger business, right? Um, so I do, and I add this guy on and we're, doing our thing or whatever. And second year, it's like 160 some thousand, right? And I'm like, man, we 4X like, in year two. So about the time we start getting into year three, now it's like, okay, I'm starting to figure out now I need to add an employee. Now I need to do this, right? I'm still not dedicating the time at home that I should, right? At this point, I've kind of like I'm not talking to really any other girls. I'm not doing any of that crap anymore. My validation was coming from my success in business, right? I start looking to possibly more than likely quit, my day job. And this is about the time I quit. And we're talking mid to late, like 25 to 27 age range. Um, and so I go and at this point, the dynamics in my relationship shifted, right? And this is like the big dynamic shift that I never saw. And it was like I was just so focused on business, I was totally blind, right? And it was like I took my kids to the shop with me, a lot. So I'm spending in my mind, I'm spending family time, even though really like I wasn't being present, but since they were there, like, hey, like they get to spend time with me and, you know, um, all this stuff. And it was like just this constant work, work, work. Right. And so about this time, we're going rolling into year three. We've acquired our actual like physical shop. We're not working out of either my house or we were kind of borrowing some space from somebody at one point. Now we got our own shop. We're doing all this stuff and we're catching traction, right? And like we're starting to blow up on social media locally, starting to build all these like relationships across the country. Hey, I got to add somebody else, right? And so I add another business partner, right? And at this point, we've got a couple of employees, there's three business partners, and we're just full steam ahead. And there was issues, right? Like at the time, I'm just like, oh, this is just it's hard, right? It's business. First couple years in business, like this is it's just hard, right? And mind you, the third year in business, I mean, we scaled, we did like 800,000, right? So like like 4xing 5x, 6xing every single year, right? So massive growth. I'm like, okay, I'm still moving forward, right? And we get to year four. Now we're in an upgraded shop. We have like this crazy reputation, like good, like everything's moving, all this stuff. And there's, I think we have at this point three full-time employees, a part-time employee, the three business owners. And I'm looking at like, okay, I got to start diversifying. There's some other stuff that I want to do. So we kind of sit down, right, with the business owners, and it's like, hey, like, let's have let's have you take over this, you take over that, right? Which was like one was like the computers, the customer service, the online orders, all that sort of stuff. The other side was like the shop, right? Because we had basically an automotive shop. We were doing diesel performance stuff. And okay, you take this over here, and I'm gonna like handle just kind of the back end like business structure functionality and like make sure the business stays a business essentially, right? Which looking back on it now was kind of it was my way of like passing the buck, if you will, right? And like there was starting to be some issues where like we're experiencing all these growing pains, and which of course just made the home life situation worse, right? But I'm like, oh, this is normal. Like it's all the stuff people tell you, and it's like, oh, this is just how things go. Um, so I'm getting more disconnected from my family home life. I end up working on two other businesses simultaneously, and I back way off on this, right? And there were some issues that I saw, but like I didn't really think they were problems. I didn't understand the depth of the problems that they were. And so as I stepped away, they just magnified, right? They amplified. And of course, like I didn't fully know what I was doing. Nobody else fully knew what they were doing. And we were running now, right? I think like year four, like we projected like 1.5 million or 1.7, something like that, right? So like now we're not 4xing, but like definitely still going, now we're creeping like well into the seven-figure range, right? And about the fall of that year, so we're pretty much at the end of year four at this point. We get raided by the EPA, which I don't know how familiar you are about like the diesel industry, but basically what was going on was there was this massive thing where um, the EPA was hitting diesel shops for removing emissions, right? It was always a civil fine. We had went to attorneys and been like, hey, like, can we do this at all? Is it like completely a no-go? Like, what's the deal? Like, and we're told by attorneys, hey, make them sign waivers. The law states that if you're doing it for off-road or competition use only, you're fine, right? So sign the waivers. Whatever the customer does when they leave your property, that's on them, right? Okay, right? That's what we went with. So we did. Um, Part of the scrutiny that the EPA is under now is them overstepping their bounds. I happen to be part of that wonderful 4 or 5 years where they were overstepping their bounds, and everything went from civil penalties to criminal violations. Um, and so basically we got hit, right? And about this time, I'm like, okay, basically, I'm pretty distracted with everything else that's going on. Um, I was trying to focus on other things, not putting, any focus on what was right in front of me. At this point, I didn't even have a debit card to the business accounts, right? Like I'm just like kind of checked out of everything that's going on. And when all this comes down, there was like some major red flags, right? Of all the stuff. So like the business partner I first added, we noticed like, man, he's really, really buddy with these agents, right? Like something, like
There it
something's
is.
not, yeah, yeah, it's something's off, right? So you get through that and it's like, okay, we're fighting it. And then we realize, like, me and the other partner that was supposed to be in charge of the shop, like, we dig into some stuff, right? And we're like, man, this is a giant mess. Like, there's thousands of dollars worth of stuff, like parts that are owed to customers that, like, we have no accounts for, like, where the money went. Like, that we just got hit by the EPA. There's about to be a massive, like, bill, a legal battle. What is going on? Right? Like, this is crazy. So we started going through this, and it's like, oh man, like the guy that, and it was at the time we thought it was comical, right? We got a picture of him locked in our office, in my office actually, with the EPA agents for like 2.5 hours, right? And we're like, none of the rest of us did that. And I'm like, man, like we laughed about it at the time, but looking back, we're like, yeah, okay, right. And so then we look into this and we're like, man, there was a massive screw up where he like flat out lied to a major client of ours that had spent a lot of money to us and screwed some things up, and we had to clean that up. And then it was that combined with a few other like dominoes that fell over, and then we start digging into the financials and how screwed up things were, right? And it was like, okay, he's got to go, right? And we just made a decision. Like we didn't tell him, we didn't do anything. We like he literally walked in, we had pulled all of his logins, pulled all the information, pulled everything, and basically had him sign like basically a back or letter terms like I'm done, I'm walking away clean, I'm owed nothing, and was like, dude, this is your option. Like there's no option B. Um, and so we did. Well, so then we start this cleanup, right? Of like, dude, we're trying to do everything we can. We're trying to juggle. We're trying to get shop projects out. By now, of course, everything's starting to catch up, right? Like stuff's getting out. We have that small town vibe up here. So it's like people know we got hit by the EPA. People are noticing like there's some other issues going on that now we're starting to, right? There was some quality control stuff with the shop that like I should have been more involved in and I wasn't, right? The shop manager, I mean, he was doing the best he could, right? But helping me, like we were both attacking, trying to clean this up, right? And like it came just crashing down all at once. Um, and so when this happened, we had part of the like focusing on other things was we were actually designing and manufacturing some of our own parts for trucks. And some of it we would design in house, send down to Florida to be produced. Some of it we would order all the parts produced there. So what we wanted to do was me and my wife at the time were talking about moving, right? And so we had actually put our house up for sale already. Um, Planned to move to the East Coast to open up like a distribution center because we were thinking, okay, look, I got family in Arizona. Um, we can go to the East Coast. My in-laws are on the East Coast. We'll open up a distribution center there. I can start handling, a different side of the business. We'll make some pivots. And then all this stuff comes crashing down, right? House is under contract already. Basically lost any sort of income because really what was there wasn't actually there, right? And so it's like, well, what do we do? Right. So we end up making the decision to say, okay, let's complete the move. Like we're already here, right? It is what it is. So the really fun part of all this, right? And what I would caution anybody to that goes into business is if you're going to have a partner, be really careful. Not to say that it can't work, right? And not even that you have to be careful because what if they're not a good person, right? They can be a fantastic person, but if they don't know what they're doing and if you don't know what you're doing, more often than not, we find partnership because we don't have the confidence in ourselves to actually like pursue it, right? And so what ended up happening is here's this giant mess, right? Dude, I cashed out. I sold a bunch of personal possessions. I cashed out whatever retirement stuff I had to start paying, customers, buying stuff. There's some stuff that we talked about that I'm not sure if to be honest with you, that you had asked at the beginning of the show, is there a no go? There's some stuff that we did to like get people their money back that like, I don't know if there's a statute of limitation, so I'm not going to talk about it, but like did everything we could to like make people whole, right? Largely at my discretion and put myself in jeopardy to try and make people whole, right? And with our move, like, dude, we sold household items like couch, appliances, like, kitchenware, stuff like that to come up with the money to actually move because all of our other resources I put into this, right? But here's the thing. You live in this small town. I'm the founder, right? So it falls on me. And of course, in the world we live in, people love drama and they love to make things up. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
crazy stuff for years, bro. Like, I've heard so many crazy things over the years about stuff that I quote unquote did that like people didn't know who I was. And they were telling stories about this guy that owned this shop. And like, did you hear he did X, Y, and Z? And I'm just like, crazy, he did? That's wild, right? And I'm like, it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth, but like, what do you do? Right? Like it falls on me. I was the founder. I stepped away. I took my eye off the ball. I let stuff go on autopilot with like people that shouldn't. And like one of them wasn't even a bad person, right? Like the one business partner, like I've done business with him recently, right? Because like he's like he wasn't a bad dude. Like we just weren't equipped to handle the size of what we were handling, and we had somebody in our wheelhouse actively tearing stuff down, right? So you fast forward, we moved to the East Coast, right? I'm thinking, man, we're building this up. And it gets even crazier, right? So, like, while I'm sitting here getting blamed for everything, right? While everybody is flaming me on social media, um, dude, there's people that like have made up fake invoices and been like, oh, I did the service for him. Like he owes me money, right? Like still to this day, like making stuff up, being like, oh yeah, he screwed me over. He did, right? And I'm like, okay, sure, right? And like people love the drama on Facebook. They love to start crap. So it is what it is. Like you just deal with it and move on. But while all this is going on, right, I move over. I'm trying to keep communication with the other partner because he was trying to like get people their vehicles back, make them as whole as possible. I'm like, look, dude, I don't have a lot of money. Like, I literally am like, I'm at zero now, right? Like, I'm trying to actively acquire a job. If I can scrape together a little money, I'll send it to you. Let me know whatever I can do. If you need help diagnosing something, like maybe I can get a plane ticket back up there, and like if you need help like fixing some stuff, I can fly up, like, spend some time. It was always this kind of like, no, don't worry about it, whatever. Um, so get a job and I start setting up like just being able to take care of my family, like, right? Get them into a house, get a place to stay. And I'm sitting at work, and there was this guy that I worked with that we were pretty close, and like twice a week, probably we would go buy lunch, right? And it would be like he bought it one day, I bought it the next day, and it was my turn to buy, right? And it wasn't expensive. Like we'd go to like I think Chipotle, and get like a $10 bowl or something. And so like I would send him $10, basically $20 a week kind of thing, right? And so it was my turn to buy, but he was gonna go pick it up. And I go to Cash App him and I'm like, it didn't work. Like there's some weird error. I'm like, hmm, okay. So I started digging into it. So fun fact, the business owner that also we're pretty sure like rolled on everything in the EPA and we had to kick out to like because of all the weird financial stuff, actually taken out business loans in my name. Unfortunately, we were all so close that we like knew each other's socials and birth dates because we fill out a bunch of paperwork together and this and that. And there was a bunch of business loans that were taken out in my name that I wasn't aware of. Some of which I was, a lot of which I wasn't. So you fast forward to this, and what had happened is one of these loans was like an aggressive merchant cash advance. For anybody that knows what that is, if you don't, it's essentially where they take a loan out. They have some crazy astronomical interest rate, and they charge you on a daily basis. And the collateral is what your current revenue is. So like you have to send them bank statements and stuff, and like they basically loan off of the revenue that you see coming in, right? And towards the end of the business, I mean, it's like 140, $150,000 a month, right? So like they're like, oh, cool, right? They were more than happy to give us a loan. But then when that loan stopped getting paid back because the business ceased to exist, um, I was the co-signer apparently, or the guarantor on it, which I was unaware of. So I found out because they actually came and got like they part of those contracts are that they actually require you to like basically give them the right to freeze your accounts. So they had like frozen like my Venmo, my Cash App, anything that they knew about, they froze, right? And like it was just dead stop. And I'm like, great. And they're like, yeah, we'll unfreeze it, but you got to give us $20,000 and then $6,000 a week until yeah. I'm like, what? Right? Like I'm just getting life set back up. I think I'm in this job making like 80 grand, a year, taking care of a spouse and 4 kids and trying to still like, there was a ton of debt that came out of this that I'm still trying to contend with. And it was just this crazy situation, right? So end up having to go through a bankruptcy. It was the only way to like get because it was like over 300 grand, right? Of these loans that I didn't know about. So like had to get rid of them, couldn't do anything, right? And like that was literally the only way to get access to my bank accounts at this point. Like I can't pay rent, I can't buy groceries, I can't do anything, right? Like so backed into a corner. I take care of all this. And as we're going through, this series of events, um, i- I'm on the East Coast, and I find out at this point I've been so distracted, right? Like I wouldn't even know if there was a problem in my own house, right? Like to be completely honest with you, trying to deal with all this stuff. I'm like going to work, but I had made this shift at this point, right? Like when I moved, I'm like, I had, like I said, there was always kind of in the back of my head, like something's off about my life, right? And this was like when it all came crashing down, and I'm over there. I find out my dad has cancer, which I was super close with him my entire life, right? So now I'm contending with this. And, when we found this out, it was kind of this thing. My 2 oldest kids want to go fishing with my dad in the summertime. My parents paid for tickets for them, and I had to work. So my ex-mother or my previous in-laws actually watched the 2 younger kids we had. My ex-wife took the 2 older ones to Alaska, and they come up here, and while they're gone, I get a message from a random woman, not somebody trying to hit me up, the partner of another guy who found a bunch of explicit messages basically between my wife and him. And the thing is, I knew that she had like kind of had like talked to this guy previously when we were in Alaska. It was kind of like, they were friends from like middle school kind of thing. It was like, we kind of hung out with them a few times, like, went out on camping, like stuff. And it was like totally caught me off guard, right? I did the typical freak out, like all this stuff, like, we go through a bunch of stuff and I end up forgiving her. We're working on things. And at a certain point, we make this decision like we never should have left the state, right? Like we screwed up by coming down here. Like we should have stayed, fought through everything. You know, we could have canceled the house sale. Like all this stuff is all screwed up. So let's go back, try and put everything back together. So we do, you know, we go and go back to Alaska. And the first leg of the trip, I actually get to the truck we were driving. We were towing a trailer, driving this truck, and it breaks down in Tennessee. We're 4 hours into the trip from Virginia, 4.5, something like that. We break down in Tennessee. It's like 1 a.m. I barely limped this thing to a hotel, trying to figure out like what's going on, what the issue is, you know, like the whole deal. And like, you know what, we're just gonna get a hotel, get the kids down, whatever. It's like little after 1 a.m. Finally lay down. I'm like, okay, it's been a heck of a day. I'm just ready for bed, right? And my phone starts blowing up. I'm like, dude, it's 1 a.m, right? Like, I didn't talk to too many people in Alaska anymore, so like it was normal time, of course, like over there, but like, or decent time in the evening, I should say. I'm like, what is going on here, man? So I go and I open it, and it's screenshots of photos of my ex-wife. And turns out she was having an affair with the second business partner that I was actually cool with. And that turned into this whole thing, right? So this, that, and the other. Somehow we talk. I'm naive enough to think that it's going to end. On our travels back, we end up, you know, traveling for another, you know, we're stuck in Tennessee for a couple of weeks. We're working through that crap. We get the truck fixed, end up selling that truck to buy a different truck, start our journey, have another breakdown in Oklahoma due to blown out trailer tires. We get to like finally limp to Arizona. I've got a bunch of family there, and that truck breaks down in northern Arizona. So we get it towed to a shop, go end up staying in Arizona for like 2.5 months, just waiting on the truck to get fixed. So we had to like enroll the kids in school using like my uncle's address and all kinds of stuff, right? So come back to Alaska, and you know, when I first went to Virginia, let me back up. I started this journey of like, it started with me getting in better shape physically, but also mentally, and like actually started learning about like me realizing like, okay, my relationship kind of sucks. Like it's not where it should be. I screwed up in business, right? And so while I was over there, I was cramming knowledge like no other, right? So like I had hours of commuting a day, podcasts all day. Like the jobs I was in for the most part, I could listen to like podcasts while I was doing stuff. So like I'd have one AirPod in podcast. Dude, I was doing like 8 hours of podcasts a day. I would read, you know, I'd get up early in the morning, read an hour, 2 hours. I was working out a lot. I was doing all this stuff, right? And I was at the same time going back and analyzing where everything failed in the business, right? And so I'm going back, and I was trying to figure it all out. And an important part of this is when I was there, the people that I happened to work for, made friends for, everybody happened to be connected, right? So it was like, I'm working for this shop owner. I'm like his head mechanic, if you will, and you know he's got friends that are just like very well connected, you know, real estate people, or you know the neighbor up the road knows this guy or that guy, and pretty soon I'm like having dinner with these dudes that have like 7 figure, 8 figure, you know, at one point I'd met a couple guys that were 9 figure net worth guys, and like just super down to earth, right? And I just got put in the room. So I just shut up and I ask questions, right? And that's like this massive, like, knowledge shift, right? So I'm cramming podcasts, I'm reading, and I'm getting to talk to these guys. And it was like, oh man, this is crazy, right? And so I'm having this internal shift And I'm starting to put together these systems of like building business systems that I'm like, okay, everything I'm learning, everything they're telling me, everything that like connects these dots, this is where I failed. This is what I should have done differently. Right. And I started building all this stuff. And I even started like I had an opportunity to help a couple of people over there and like kind of coaching them almost on these systems that I kind of built in my office. And I'm like, man, this is working, right? And it was like this total shift of like, I saw guys that were in the early stage of like where I was before I lost my business and was able to be like, here, do this and like shift it around, right? And these guys are very like, they're still very successful like in their business, right? And so fast forward, I'm like learning all this stuff, relationships. Like I'm learning how to talk to my wife different, deal with her different, deal with my kids different, like the whole deal, right? All the ways I'd screwed up, right? And at this point, like even the whole way back, we're moving, right? Every hour we spent in the car, I'm like listening to podcasts, right? And like audiobooks and all this stuff. Like it drove my kids insane because I had two kids in my car. She had two kids in her car, right? And I'm sure they're like watching movies and jamming out to music in their car. And I'm just like full on education mode in my car, right? And or in the truck. And so we fast forward, we get to Arizona, all that stuff happens. And I'm still in this mindset of like, okay, I've screwed all this up. I'm gonna fix this stuff, right? And so like we're pushing through. I get back to Alaska. There's still like there's specific people that just thrive on the drama, thrive on like as adults, like loving to screw with people that are like targeting me and just whatever. And I'm like, okay, I just have to like ignore it, right? Get back. Of course, the affair doesn't stop. Um, it just being back in the state just encouraged it at that point, right? Because now there's no distance, right? And like whatever that leads to initially a separation, eventually a divorce. During the separation, like all that stuff's going on. I'm still like, I kind of had this like push backwards in a way mentally. I started being a hoe, like for lack of better terms, right? I'm just like, okay, well, I guess like whatever, right? Like when I'm not, I was basically working, being a dad, and when I wasn't doing one of those two things, I'm being a hoe, right? Like, and so I would,
Hey,
yeah,
just being honest.
right, right. And so it'd be like every couple months, it'd be a new girl, kind of thing. And like I was honest with him from the beginning. I didn't lie to him. Like, hey, like you're only going to be around a couple months. Like this isn't a long term thing. Like, you know, if that's not you, cool, no problem. But like that's what I'm doing. And so that lasted for a little while. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually helping business owners, right? And I'm honing this stuff and I'm getting better at it. And I've been studying like neuroscience and brain science for a while at this point and like just learning all this stuff about like relationships and all this. The real problem is like with the whole being a hoe thing is I kind of used what I learned, right? And learned how to actually talk and deal with women. And it became easy. And then, it was back to this, like I was still in this like validation trap, right? And so now I'm like, I'm back in this job. I'm working at the dealership I started at when I was like 18, 19, but I'm doing two different jobs here, right? I'm doing things, right? And I'm like just kind of there's no like purpose, there's no direction. Like I'm just doing things, right? I'm like, man, I'm helping so many people now, like with their businesses and fix their businesses and like coaching them on their life, right? And like I'm not getting paid for it. I'm just doing it, right? So we get a little ways into this. And let me back up again because I mean there's so much stuff like even now that I'm like missing, right? But um part of the reason for moving back was dad and his cancer and like wanted to be here for him. He ends up beating cancer, right? But he's able to spend more time with the family, the grandkids, all the stuff, which is awesome because like I'm super close with him, I always was. And so um in all of this when I was going first through my separation, I bring this up because it's really important. I actually just reached out to the guy today because I hadn't talked to him in like at least 6 months, if not a year. But he's there was a gentleman, and he resurfaced in my life, right? And I never was like super close friends with this guy. It was when I was with my ex-wife before we left state. We kind of got into like the off-road community and doing the Jeep thing and all the stuff, right? And so when we did that, um it was a guy I met through there, right? And him and his wife, and they were very faith driven. And I never really hung out with him, off-roaded with him a few times, really cool guy, whatever. So at the time I'm at the dealership, he walks in one day and I just happened to recognize him. And I just approached him. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? Like, haven't seen you in forever. And this, and he like, it was this weird area because with us being in a small town, right? It's like half the people are like, yeah, I know you. And I know that crap was BS. And half the people are like caught up in the drama and like, yeah, like you're a piece of junk, right? So when I hadn't talked to anybody in a while, it was always this like, which version am I getting, right? For the longest time, because I still cared, right? And I still had this like validation identity issue in myself. So I hit him up and I'm like, hey, how you doing? This, that, and the other. And he's like, hey, yeah, man, we should catch up. Here's my phone number, this, that. So I end up kind of unloading with him. Hey, I'm going through separation, divorce stuff. This is what's going on. This is what's happened the last few years. Da 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 da. And he's like, every time I talk to him, right, he would hear me out and be like, yeah, man, that sounds really tough. You should spend time in the word, right? Like go read a Bible, basically. I'm like, brother, I'm not trying to hear that. I'm trying to get validated that my life sucks, like I'm trying to get you on my side that this is a crappy situation, right? And he would never engage in it. He would always be like, hey, you should really read, your Bible. You should really go to this book. You should really. And I'm like, I guess, man, like, and for a while, at a certain point, right, I was pretty resistant to it. But then it hit me at a certain point. I started listening to him, right? And I bring this up because it started pushing me to go back to the church that I grew up in, right? And I'm like, I'm trying, and something still is like off in my life. It doesn't feel right. I feel out of place. I feel like it's wrong. I'm not doing the right things, but I'm like, maybe if I just go to church, like that'll help give me some guidance, right? Trying to be a better dad still figuring out how to like fully deal with people, like all this stuff. And so what ends up happening is I start kind of coming back to church. And in that, I started questioning a lot of things in religion, right? And in the Bible. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't make sense. Like, why like you're telling me this and that verse, like, yeah, kind of, but I feel like something is off, right? And so I'm still like, man, I'm going down this path. And what's funny is I said this before, and like I now where I'm at in my faith, right? I'm very faith driven, and I'm very like I owe it all to God, and he was putting me through these things to actually be like, you need to become the person, right? And now knowing and reading through the Bible, I'm like, dude, that's every person's success story, right? Like they were accused of the craziest stuff. They had the craziest stuff happen to them. There's this, that, like, ending up in jail for years, getting accused of like sleeping with the king's wife when he really didn't, like all these stories. And I'm like, dude, this is everybody, right? Like I'm literally living out, some of this stuff. And I'm like, but every time it created the most faithful people, right? So like all this stuff happens. So like we get back to Alaska during all this, I forgot. At the very like few months after us getting back, um, I finally get sentenced for the getting rated by the EPA, right? So I have to back up to that. So they hit me with fines, and I had taken a deal, and I didn't have to give them anything other than basically a podcast telling them like this is what the law was, because the EPA actually admitted like, yeah, nobody understands what the actual law is. So can you help us get this like word out, and we'll put in a good word with the judge and just basically tell people what the actual law is. That's all we want you to do. I'm like, sure, I will, like in my own way. And my attorney's like, don't do it, follow their script. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm gonna do it my way. And if they hate it, I guess I get more time. Like, I don't know what to say, right? And I did, and they're like, no, it didn't come out bad. Like, you satisfied our stuff, I guess, you know. But I was able to actually have a conversation with a big podcast and be like, hey, like, here's what's really going on. This is where we're at, you know, that sort of thing. So I in the early stages of the separation, I'm still figuring out my own emotions. And I had taken this deal and basically, you got to do this podcast. You're going to get hit with some fines. You're going to have some community service. And you're going to have a few years of probation. I'm like, okay, like, is what it is, right? I'll take it. I get there and the judge is like, we do the whole thing. The judge is like, yeah, you know, you're like one of the first people under the criminal stuff. And you would think everybody would learn their lesson from the civil fines, but they're not. So we're going to actually make an example out of you. And even though the like district attorney put in a good word and was like, yeah, we were hoping you'll go the minimum and actually do some reductions. And this is what he's willing to take. So theoretically, it should have came back better. She's like, nope, we're going to make an example. So we're going to extend it to 5 years probation. And on top of the community service and the fines, we'll go ahead and leave those. Or, sorry, there was no community service originally. She added the community service. It was just fines and 3 years probation. She adds the community service and 6 months house arrest. None of the other business partners got house arrest. And in fact, the first guy that I had mentioned, he actually just this is like 22, fall of 22 that we got hit, like the final sentencing. We just found out that he got his like stuff like recently, and he got like basically nothing, right? Like he got a misdemeanor and a little probation. Like he got nothing. So we're like, okay, he definitely like basically rolled, like he talked the whole deal, right? Like there's no way, right? And this is the guy that like screwed up everything to begin with, while I'm catching all the flack and a little bit of, you know, my other partner's catching a little bit of flack. And like, anyways, so all this is going on, right? Like I actually got sentenced before my dad beat cancer. So it was like separation with my ex-wife, dealing with that stuff, trying to sort through my emotions, figure this stuff out. I'm on house arrest. Dad's still fighting cancer, the whole deal. And so we get through this guy's hammering me. I'm going back to church and I'm just like, man, what is the deal? Right. And finally, like I'm still working out a decent amount. At this point, I'm boxing. I've got a dedicated boxing coach every week, right? I'm doing MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu like 3-4 times a week. I'm lifting weights 5 times a week. Like I'm like working out, working on myself, like reading books, you know, back to like some podcasts. But I'm like shifting gears of like doing all this stuff, right? Like I'm deep diving into like issues with me, right? Like I never really thought like porn was a big thing, right? I was never really like addicted to it. It was just like never a thing for me where I'm like, well, I don't really have that addictive behavior. So like it's fine, right? But then like I read the book that's Centerfold Syndrome, which if you've never read that, or any of your listeners haven't read that, like it's a fantastic book, right? Because it breaks down all the psychology behind like how they influence that from the time we're little. And I start realizing like all these things, right? I thought I'd been working on myself for years, right? I'm like back to like, I'm building these business systems. I'm having success helping people. I'd even kind of started some business, like small business stuff. And, you know, like all this, I'm like, man, but there's still like, I'm still just cycling women out every couple months. You know, doing these other things. I have no direction, right? And I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm questioning the church. I'm questioning like these things, right? And I'm just like, man, I like stepped away from the church, right? There's some like internal stuff, and I'm like, this isn't for me. Religion's not for me. I'm good, right? Like, I believe in God, but I don't think you got to go to church. I don't think you got to read your Bible, whatever. Like, believing's good. Like, that's all you need. And so God had a different plan, and he went, and I had chosen to like make a drastic change in my life. I unfollowed every woman on my social media. I changed all my algorithms, you know, even like family members, like if they were a woman, they were gone, right? Like I went to the crazy extreme, like, and I got off all the dating apps. So the weird part was I had deleted all of that, like full deactivation of my account, like whatever, except for one, Hinge. And it was the day I had deleted it. For some reason, to deactivate your account, it was a little different process. And I just didn't, I don't know what it was. Like, I just didn't want to deal with it. I'm like, I'd already done like three others. Like, I'm good. Like, I'll just delete the app and it'll be fine. Right. Sign out, delete the app. It's fine. So a couple weeks goes by and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm sitting at the dealership one day and I get this crazy urge to like jump on the dating app. I'm like, dude, this is just my dopamine. Like, this is just, I'm seeking like a dopamine hit. This is dumb. And it was different. Like, it was like this urge. And I'm like, dude, I don't have addictive behavior. I started chewing right after high school and I did it for almost a year. And one day I just got a brand new can. I was packing it. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I threw it out the window. I threw my spit out and never picked it up again. Right. Like, I don't know. I didn't ever have those issues. Well, let me rephrase, in the ways that people normally do. Right. Later on, I realized that was like the talking to women was I was addicted. I had an addiction, if you will, to like the validation and seeking it. And there part of that goes back to my childhood. But so I keep getting this urge and I'm like, dude, this is dumb. Right. And mind you, when I was on the dating apps, there was a type, right? Like we all know the type for the guys and for the girls. Like we know the type, right? There's like specific provocative pictures. They're going to be a fun time. Like they're not marriage material more than likely. I mean, they think they are, but like a guy that really is like really trying to find a good wife, like that's not who you're hitting up on a dating app, right? And like that was the type. And so I end up caving, right? And I re-download Hinge and I log in and I hit up three girls. First two, the type, right? Like the same thing. Like I hit them with some stupid pickup line that like always worked on, and the third one was so far different than everything else I had hit up, right? Like there wasn't any provocative pictures. There was like pictures of her doing wholesome activities and fishing and doing these things. And like in her profile, she had kids and this and that. And I don't know why. I was like, man, she's kind of cute. And like, I don't know, it's just different. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll try different, right? Like, why not? So I did, and what was weird about this is I hit all three of them up. All three of them responded. But the first two, I never responded back, right? Like they responded to the initial pickup line. I was just like, there was no interest, right? The third one had me intrigued. So I hit her up. I give her some crazy pickup line, right? Like I asked how many kids she had, and she's like, oh, I have three. And I'm like, oh, great. I have, and she responds back, how many do you have? That like initial, like kind of getting to talk to somebody. I hit her with this dumb pickup line. I'm like, great. Well, now that I know, I tell her I have four. I'm like, hey, great. Now that I know that we need a bus to go everywhere, like, let me get your number, basically, right? And the way I said it, it made her laugh. And of course, you make a girl laugh. Usually you're off to a good start. And so we end up having we end up meeting. I was going out of town and we end up meeting like the day I go out of town and we go have lunch and it was like, okay. And then we just keep talking from there. And like the second date, we go to this like Nordic spa type setup. So it's like a bunch of hot tubs and cold plunges and stuff basically. And we end up having like this really deep conversation. Like even the first conversation, right? Like it was probably 3 or 4 months before we talked about favorite colors or favorite meals or like any of that dumb stuff. Like literally from the time we sat down, like for one, she walked in not looking like a hoe, right? She like looked very well put together. She was dressed nice, like not a ton of crazy makeup, right? Like which is total opposite of everything I had chased. And I'm like, okay, this is, which I'm the kind of guy that I'm like, I don't really care. Like, do you, as long as it's for the right reasons, right? More often than not, it's not. And there's validation issues and people seeking attention or whatever, right? Issues within themselves they need to work on. But whatever, right? Do you, I don't care what people do. It doesn't affect me, right? but it was so far different than everything. I was like, man. And then we get to talk, and of course, I was at the dealership that day, and so I had left my suit on, right? So of course, I'm looking good because I got a fresh cut, my hair's all done, and I got the nice suit, right? And I'm working, looking all suave. I'm working out all the time. I fit the suit good, right? Like, and so she's like, "Oh, dang, this dude's pretty hot, right?" And like, I'm like, man, she catches me off guard because I'm like, it was a different attractiveness, it wasn't like this like real provocative, whatever. It was like a wholesome, like, she's pretty, but like she didn't have to dress like a hoe to be pretty, right? And I'm like, man. So we have a great conversation. We talk about life and relationships and all this stuff. And I'm deep diving into relationships. And what ends up happening over the course of the next few years, right, is I end up marrying her. We get rebaptized together. God basically sends us down this like, ironically enough, we got re-involved with another church that my ex-wife invited us to, and she asked me to come for 6 months. And for 6 months, I'm like, I'm not going to the same church with you and your dude, right? Because, like, mind you, she's now with my ex-business partner, all the stuff, right? And I'm like, me and him had beef, and like, we did all the stuff, right? Like the beef ended with us throwing hands and us just being like, dude, we're adults. What are we doing? Like, this is dumb, right? And then we actually end up coming to a cordial place. We end up doing some more business together at some point and for a little while, like all the stuff. And so I was like, for the longest time, like, I'm not coming to your church. I'm not coming to church. And, she's like, there's different times, all this stuff. So I end up doing that. And then I end up I have community service that I've got to knock out now, right? And I had coached some little league and done some stuff to knock that out, and I end up trying to get involved in the church. Now, I had tried with the previous church I had been to, and they just like, there was like, I could never get anywhere with it, right? And when I walked away, it was kind of like whatever. So I get involved. I start doing volunteer work, and I end up being on their security team. I end up helping them with a bunch of events, and I'm still going down this like business road, right? And at this point, I've started some other businesses and kind of like shut them down. They were never intended to be long term, and there's just different stuff. Like, I'm still learning, right? All the stuff. And I come down this track, and for the next few years, it was like God said, okay, you were going down this path, and I've corrected you a few times. Now we're going to 180, and there's no option, right? And so, like, I get rebaptized, I marry this girl, right? And we have this family, and we're doing all this stuff, like the co-parenting with other parents, and um, on my side, like, we were cordial and good, but we didn't have the boundaries we should. On her side, it's like the typical like World War III type divorce, right? So like, we're spending all this time in court. I'm learning how to be a stepdad. I'm still trying to be a better dad. And like, in this journey, we just continued to fall deeper and deeper into our faith. And it was like, all the stuff I questioned before, it was like I got the answers, right? I felt off because I wasn't getting the answers, right? And then I was feeling, off about my life because I didn't have direction. Now I'm like, I have direction, right? I'm starting to get this clearer and clearer vision of my life. Her and I continue to work through our crap, and it wasn't easy, right? Like, we both at some point or another in those first like couple years were like, I'm leaving, right? On one of our sides, and not like in the typical, like, I'd done it with my ex and she had done it with me a million times as like a threat of trying to like gain control in the, in the argument. But like, no, truly, like, I'm leaving. And then like the other partner saying, hey, like, let's work on this, let's stay, and being the one to like drag it back in, right? And in this process, we go dive super deep into the faith. And like, I can't even necessarily describe all the details of the sequence events, but it's like just too perfect of every step of the way, right? Like, I meet a guy because we're talking about getting married. So I'm trying to talk to somebody about like some premarital counseling through the church. And I meet a guy that like wants me to come to this group because he sees my hat, the new mindset movement. And he's like, hey, tell me about that. Hey, I have this group that's about, we really talk about mindset and how it relates to the Bible and this and that, and you should really come. And then that ties into, this and that. And here we are, like, I help co-lead that group now. Him and his wife are some of our best friends. Like, he baptized us. He actually married me and my wife. In this like process, like, she co-leads a women's group now. We've actually started a couples group. You had said you'd listen to some of the podcasts. We do the faith-based relationship podcast now. I've actually obtained certifications in business systems and neuroscience. Together, she has a background and she's a certified teacher. She combined that with us getting certifications in marital and premarital mentorship, right? And I finished a book about communication. It's a short little kind of interactive book. It's not crazy deep. I'm writing that's like the baby step. I'm doing another big deeper book currently that's like super deep into like your internal communication and how that plays out and everything. We have a faith-based mindset apparel brand now. And I'm like doing the coaching and consulting, like the business and leadership coaching full time now. We do relational coaching and mentorship now too. We've started, school communities is a recent thing. And, we've been given this vision of like building this ecosystem of just trying to help people and use the things that we've been through, because she's been through a lot too, right? And like just teach our kids, right? Like doing things differently and not doing it the same. All my kids have like, we attack their identity, when we talked first off about the stuff and the identity, right? Because I realized like there was so much stuff about a year and a half ago, I think now. Or no, sorry, a year ago, I go to this event that's like Michael Burnoff. If anybody's ever heard of Michael Burnoff, if you haven't, check him out. Like amazing dude when it comes to NLP neuroscience type stuff, right? And like I go to this event and it unlocks all this stuff, right? Like, why do I struggle so bad with this validation? I had worked through that actually with my wife and like dealing with the true cause of like this not good enough complex, right? But like I hadn't attacked the why, right? And I go to this event and then it's like a few months later, the stuff that came out of this event, it clicks for me, like, because there's still a guy, right, that like still tries to stir up crap about every 6 months to a year. There's some crap that comes up. He's the dude that leaked my ex's like pictures to begin with, right? And he still like will stir up crap and try to make up crap about me and get like this in social media like rise out of people, right? And I'm like, why does this stuff bother me so much? Right. And I go back to like my childhood and I realize like these events that seemingly were insignificant, right? Like dad would travel when I wasn't traveling with him. Mom would drop me off at my aunt's house. Right. And like, I thought it was time to hang out with my cousins and whatever. It turns out like she really wasn't trying to mom is the whole deal. Right. Like that affected me without me knowing it. There was a couple events in my childhood that when you look back on them, you're like, that's dumb. But I was accused of some stuff that I didn't do. And it ended up coming back that like, hey, I didn't do them, but it was very serious at the time. And or it seemed serious, right? For like the age, like 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever it was. And that affected me, right? And all these things imprinted on me to where it was like I always had this like have to prove my worth type thing, right? And I needed validation. And it turned into this whole thing, right? And all of this stuff comes out now, right? To where like we have this vision of doing this thing, at some point, our 10-year plan, like we got 10 years till our littlest guy is out of the house and we're going to be doing couples retreats out in the woods, right? Like we're building this whole vision that God has given us now because of everything that we've been through, right? And all the stuff. And there's so much more that I could unpack, right? Like we could talk for probably 5, 6 hours about all this. But it just becomes this situation where like doing all the stuff and digging through all the stuff, right? And all the fine details. Like I've got a guy in our men's group now that's going through a lot of similar stuff that I went through. And I'm like, dude, I can relate, right? Like he tells the stories and I'm like, I remember when I was that guy, like going through somebody else's phone or this or that, right? And I'm like, dude, I can relate. And I like can resonate with him and tell him like, do this, do that, don't do that, right? Like And we're in this place where we've taken all this stuff that we've learned in the neuroscience and the NLP, and we kind of have this joke now about like, everybody's kind of going down this neuroscience thing now, right? Like that's the trend is neuroscience and NLP. And it's like, dude, that's what Jesus taught 2000 years ago. Right. And like, we've made all these connections of like, literally like, you know, this is, you go to a Sunday sermon, right? For those that are religious or go to church, right? 99% of them show up and they nod their heads on a Sunday and then they walk out those doors and they have no idea how to implement that in their life. And they know they should, right? And they may even think about it the rest of the day, but Monday comes around and their day to day comes around and they have no idea. And the connection is the neuroscience, right? It's the internal conversations that you're having with yourself and the identity, right? And then you go look at all the scriptures and you start looking at like, don't be transformed by this or don't, oh, geez, my brain is fried. Don't be conformed to this world, right? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Or you look at like Galatians 2:20, right? It's no longer I who lives, it's he who lives in me, right? I built a whole document that took like the greatest speakers of this time period and like motivational coaches and mentors and stuff, and like the top 20 pieces of advice that they give you, and was able to find at least 2 scriptures for each of them that like points and says like, here you go, right? And this is where this comes from. And so now we've taken that and it's like we're building this thing of, I'm able to help people in business, right? And change their identity as like men, and whether it's a business owner or leaders in business, help them bring out the identity that's already within them that they've been telling themselves a different conversation their entire life or for years, and bring that out of them and then teach them how to build the proper systems once they build their own programs and they're running off a different operating system themselves and build the systems in their business, and then me and my wife are able to do it for couples and be able to tell, and like we've broken all this down to a science. When you get like every part of your life, like when people come to me, they're like, man, I have this down, I have that down, but I struggle here. It's like, okay, well, what are you telling yourself? What's the conversation? Right. Like, and all these things I realized before about the like, oh, this is normal, right? Like we call people out. I mean, I don't know, which episodes you listen to on our podcast for the couples, but like we'll call people out and it's like, oh, we got married now. So, now I do this and she doesn't do that, and I love calling dudes out because they're like, oh, my wife doesn't do this anymore. She doesn't do that. I'm like, okay, one, what are you doing? Right. Because I promise you, you're not doing something you should be. But two, what conversation are you telling yourself? Right. Because you're literally telling yourself every day, this is that. Right. And you go to work and you complain about your wife and you complain. I'm like, when's the last time you sat there and you changed that conversation? You came home and you just looked at it and you're like, man, I love this woman. She's so beautiful. Man, she's the mother of my kids. Man, she right. No, we come home and she half cleaned the house. Exactly. She half cleaned the house because she had a crazy day and we want to complain that, she didn't do this or she didn't do that. It's like, what if we started appreciating those small things, right? And then you start going back to scripture, and it's the same thing with our kids, right? Like we went through this big transformation more recently because we've been like systematically going through our lives and running our lives like a business with God at the center of everything, right? And using these, changing our conversations. And like anytime me and my wife like run into a problem, we go, okay, well, what conversation are we having? Right? What are we telling ourselves right now? And I tell people all the time, I'm like, man, whatever issue, whatever hurdle you're trying to get over, it's not that you can't do it. It's not that it's a struggle. It's the conversation, right? Like the one that kills me is like the dudes, oh, I'm addicted to porn. Yeah, because you keep telling yourself that, right? Like you go to this stuff, right? And you tell yourself over and over, I have this addiction, I have this addiction. Whether you look at it from a worldly point of view or a religious point of view, they both say the same thing. And it is this: what you look for, you're going to get, right? What the Bible talks about, what's on a man's heart, so is he, right? That there's A
A
ton of
man is what he
neuroscience.
thinketh. A
Right.
man is what he thinketh.
Exactly. Right. A man is what he thinketh, right? And you look at like the neuroscience, and the neuroscience tells you the same thing, right? Like they've proven through neuroscience that people have altered their biochemistry by changing their thoughts, right? And you don't want to tell me that you telling yourself over and over, oh, I have this addiction. You used to have a problem. Yeah, you used to have a problem with this, right? And when you change that identity, it totally changes, just those small tweaks. Like you're saying the same thing. Like it doesn't matter if you went and did it 10 minutes ago. Are you doing it right now? No. Okay, then it's in the past, right? And like you hear it all the time, like from scripture or people looking to change their lives, right? And it's like you always have to look forward, right? You hear it a lot in the whole like that's why a windshield's so big on a car and your rear view mirror is so small, right? Because you can't get where you're going looking in the rear view mirror. And there's a lot of scripture to back this up too, right? And you start looking at this and it's like, why are you stuck in the past? You're telling yourself these same conversations over and over, right? How many of us that if we have kids, man, my kids are such a struggle. Man, my kids wear me out. Man, and it's this simple, like what we think is innocent, right? But we're literally programming our brains this way. And we wonder why
Yeah.
we're so tired at the end of the day. We wonder why, man, our kids can be so challenging because you're telling yourself your kids are challenging. You're telling yourself, right? You're telling yourself all these things like business, your life, your job, right? You go to your job every day and you're like, oh man, I hate my life. Because you tell yourself every morning when you get up, I don't want to do this, right? Like, of
So hold
course
on,
you do.
wait a minute. So the audience and that way they can get a better feel for what you're saying to them, because you're unlocking a big secret that people need to understand. It says it clear as day in the Bible.
Uh-huh.
Whatever comes out of your mouth,
Yep.
it happens. But this is a lot of people get this confused with the New Age, and they start getting to those practices too because they think you can manifest stuff. But really, that's not the case.
Right.
You are what you think.
Mhm.
Everything that you're speaking, that's basically what you're saying, right?
Right.
So help the audience understand that a little bit better.
The biggest thing I can say is we operate from a place of identity. It's who we are. And it's I know that from our conversations, you're a believer, I am myself. And to put that in perspective, the Bible is pretty clear. Like when we take him into our lives, we are the old version of us dies, right? Our favorite verse in our men's group is Galatians 2:20. It's no longer I who lives, but he who lives in me, right? It's for a purpose because the old you dies, right? But the world, the enemy tries to use this worldly version and say, no, that's still you, right? And keep us trapped in these old conversations. And it is as simple as focusing on the other things, right? Focusing on who you are, right? People, here's one of my favorite ones. People say, "Man, I'm not consistent," right? I had a coaching client. Yeah, I'm not consistent. I can't, I can't build a morning routine consistently. I said, okay, just tell me about your routine. Well, I get up, I hit my snooze button 5 or 6 times. I do this, I brush my teeth, I go take a shower, I do my hair, I get ready for work, I do, and there's this whole list. I said, oh, okay, you do that every day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's so hard. I don't know why. I can't build a consistent morning routine. You are consistent. What? No, you're consistent. You're just consistently doing the wrong things, right? So we tell ourselves, I can't be or I'm not consistent as a roadblock to our own selves, right? The truth is you are everything that you want to be already. If he's in you, right? It's not you who lives, right? And we hold, Jesus on this pedestal and say, "Oh man, like he was exactly who we are supposed to be." right? But the enemy, going back to the garden, right? From the very beginning of time, it has always been, you are this and your actions will follow. And from the very beginning, the enemy said, no, you have to do these actions to be like God. You have to do these actions to, and he flopped it. And now we deal with that same thing in society. We deal with it every day, right? We deal with this constant chase of, I have to chase who I want to be. I have to do this. I have to practice this. I have to do this. I have to, read these mantras or these affirmations every day. And I have to, I have to do these things that all these gurus tell me to do, and this and that, and da 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 da. And the truth is that flows out of you when you assume that identity. Stop telling yourself you're not those things, right? You might not be as fit as you want to be. You might not be eating the way you should be. You might not be going to the gym as much as you should be. But if you start viewing yourself as healthy because you are trying to practice those things, I am healthy. Okay, you're trying to go to the gym, right? Oh man, I want to go 5 times a week. I need to get in better shape. I can't, I can barely get 1 or 2 in. So you go to the gym, right? Why are you telling yourself you don't go to the gym? Right? Why are you telling yourself you're not healthy? Right? It is a journey. There's a never end. Like, we are on a journey for our entire lives. But when you assume the identity that he calls you to be, right? And it's there's a scripture in James that I love, and it talks about uh when you don't know him, it's just like a man that goes to the mirror, and when he walks away, he forgets who he is, right? And that's exactly it. When you're going to the mirror every day and you're looking at your worldly perspective and all the checklist you have to do, right? Which is exactly what Jesus argued with the Pharisees, right? It wasn't about the checklist. Like, this is a guideline of what it looks like when you operate from this place with the Spirit inside of you. These are the things that you do. These are what comes out of you. It's not a checklist. You don't check off every box and then you reach some level of perfection. That's not how it works, right? And that's never how it's ever worked. And we operate, the enemy has twisted it. He's flopped it on us and said, well, you have to do X, Y, and Z to be this person, right? Just like he did Jesus when he was tempting him in the desert, right? Well, if you really are, then you would do this. Think about that.
He
That's how we
always,
walk.
yeah, you have to look at it always like this. He always perverts the word because he can't create like God does.
Right. Right. He's always trying to twist it because he can't create. Only God can do that, right? And he's created you, and his spirit is within you. If you've taken that step and the old you has died, right? Stop living as if the old you is still alive, because it's not. You assume that new identity, and you change your conversation, right? You don't have this addiction. You are healthy. You are a great father. You are a great husband. You're doing these things, right? And it's not this, well, if I read this list long enough, maybe I'll start to believe it. No, you have to start changing the conversation, and about everything in your life, right? Whether it's your job, your spouse. Like, when you come home, I challenge you, if you're married, right? And any of your listeners are married, I challenge you to, every single day, the first thought, this is all you do. You change your thought to the first time you look at your wife for the day. Man, I love her, in your head. That's all you do, right? Just focus on that. And it's going to be a challenge if you haven't been doing that. And it's going to be a challenge to, but I can tell you that, like, when me and my wife disagree, can we get into some disagreements? Sure, 100%. No marriage is perfect. But just that thought of, man, I love this woman. She's so amazing. I don't want to, like, mess up and hurt her or say the wrong thing, actually keeps us to where, if we start to get off track, one of us goes, hey, you know what? Let's come back to this. Like, we're starting to go a different direction. This isn't what we want to do, and we're not connecting well right now. So let's go a different direction with this. Right. And then we do. Right. And you can make that change anywhere in your life, right? And all you're doing is bringing the identity that Christ has given you already out to the surface, and not allowing the enemy to tell you and to twist the scripture and twist the word and make you think that you're things that you're not.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. All right, as we begin to wrap this thing up, I just simply want to say, Mike, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story, because it's pretty much your testimony. That's how you have to really look at it. And I'm hoping whoever heard this, watching this, listening to this, it really, it helped you. I mean, to let you know that you're not alone. You're not the only one that's been through what you're going through.
Yeah.
Mike's story tells you, I mean, life can turn on a dime. But it's never too late to open up that Bible, man.
Yeah.
You probably heard it from somebody in your inner circle telling you right now to go to that word. Open the word. Open the word, man. Read the word. Because, I mean, it sounds crazy at first. You're like, nah, I don't want no part of that. Yeah, that's for religious church, all the people at the church.
Yeah.
But it will change your world. It will change how you see yourself. It will change this more than anything.
Yeah, 100%, man.
All right, let's wrap this thing up with 3 random questions. Okay. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite color?
Blue. Historically blue, yeah.
Blue?
Yeah.
I was always a blue guy when I first started off, too. And then I started going, I like red now.
Yeah.
All right, question number 2. If you could go anywhere in the world, all expenses are paid, where are you going?
Oof. That's a tough one, man. I say Greece because I think it's on a lot of people's list. Me and my wife were supposed to recently go there. It didn't work out. And I think that's common, but honestly, I would have to say there's probably a ton of other places that you could go to. It's just the first one that comes to mind, maybe. Check that off the list. I've always been the guy that when the kids are grown and out of the house, I just wanted to go to the airport with nothing but a jacket and my wallet and basically be like, where are we going? And close our eyes and just point, and the next flight we buy a ticket to wherever we're going, that's where we're going. And we buy if it's hot, we'll buy shorts there. If it's cold, we'll buy clothes there.
I used to do that when I was younger. I used to open up a map, blindfold myself, and take a dart and just throw it, and then I would just go to wherever it landed. Just to clarify, it was just the state of Ohio. It's just the state of Ohio, was it? I didn't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
But, wherever it landed in the state of Ohio, that's where I ended up at.
Yeah.
All right. For the final question, you said you're the podcast host.
Sure.
I'm going to allow you to ask me a question.
Oh. What is what has your faith shifted in your identity? The biggest notable thing that you can say, man, I noticed this change. It's a deep one.
No, because I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I could answer that in so many different ways. There's so many ways you can answer that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one, but I'd definitely say my life. To better answer this and to put it in a way for people so they can understand it, is I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life if Christ wasn't a part of it. He plays a big factor from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed. I wake up and I always say it to God. I'm always like, thank you, Lord, for another day, another blessing. Everybody always wants to say another day, another dollar. But to me, I always look at life as another day, another blessing. Because it truly is. Every day is a gift. And you're never getting... Like right now, you got to think it like this. You're talking about mindsets. Imagine this: that second that just went by, you're never getting that back.
Yeah.
Today, you're not going to get that back. This right now is a gift. You have to appreciate every moment because you never know. Enjoy your life because you only get one. How do you want to live it?
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, it's all about Christ, man.
Yeah.
I don't know where I would be without him.
Changes a
Definitely
lot.
not on this podcast. Definitely not on this podcast.
Yeah.
But other than that, though, Mike, thank you once again for coming on.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you, man.
It was a great time.
And for the people that are watching and listening right now, thank you. If you made it almost, where are we at? Almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a casual conversation between two guys.
Yeah.
Until next time, you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is your host, Chris, and that is Mike. That was his story. See you next time. Peace.